That's all, Madam Chair.
Okay. Mr. Haldewanger.
As I'm reading Mr. White's concluding statements, number 3 says, as a result of 1 and 2, our expenses are increasing at a compounding rate faster than our allowed revenue, creating negative compounding of our finances. Now, it doesn't take a brain surgeon to figure that out, that sooner or later you're going to run out of what you need. We are in it's a difficult decision, but we were put here to make difficult decisions, right? None of this, it's not an easy thing any way you look at it. But the bottom line is, for me, I can speak for me, and I hope I'm speaking for the rest of you all, is that at the end of the day, we do what is right. The things that these young people showed us a few minutes ago, in the future, they may not be able to do some of those things that they just did. It may not be money for them to do those things. So it comes down to a word I use frequently, and that is sacrifice. I used to, I'm an old baseball coach and player, and I use this, this example. I have a runner on first base. We're in the bottom of the 9th inning, and we need a run to win the game. The second player comes up, and I want to move him to second base. Well, if I'm coaching, then I'm going to have him to bunt, which nobody does anymore. So that's called a sacrifice. He may have wanted to hit a home run to win the game. The next player comes up and hits a single, and the runner scores. Well, the next day ESPN is going to have the guy that hit the single and the runner scored. He's going to be the one they're going to be, talking about, not the guy that sacrificed and got him in that position. So we're in a position where somebody at some point has to sacrifice what they want for what is best. And for me, what is best and what I ran on as a candidate was putting our students first. And if it means my sacrificing whatever I have to sacrifice, we all sacrifice time and effort, then that's what we must do. If you want the district to continue to be, as Dr. Hefner has said many times, an extraordinary district, then that's what is required. Again, nothing, matter of fact, you don't read anything where God promises anything easy. You won't see that anywhere biblically, that it's going to be easy. So nothing we do, things like this is not going to be easy, but it's something that's required of us. And we must do our best to not to satisfy everyone, because you never satisfy everyone. That's not we're in the business to do, to satisfy everybody. Even if you did 99% of what you think is right, that one, you still got 1% that's dissatisfied. So anyway, my comment is that look within yourselves and you do what is right, not necessarily what's right by you, about what's best for you, but what is best for the people we serve. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, some other questions. Mr. White.
I want to go back to one comment that we talked about, using the fund balance. And this really is a point I want to drive home. If you look on this chart, everything in green is a millage, a maximum millage increase. And if you look at the bottom, the yellow band cuts needed to balance, because it assumes that we're going to cut everything that doesn't balance in there. And the red boxes or the cumulative deficits, that those amounts have to get cut. And if you cut them, they don't reoccur. So they don't keep showing up as a layer. So I had to put that special line, the yellow at the bottom, in the cumulative budget cuts. If we dip into fund balance today these are reoccurring expenses. We have to dip into fund balance every single year into the future for the same amount. We have to be prepared to do that, or we're going to increase the amount we're going to cut starting next year. And I think we've always said this in the past, and I would still say it today. We don't pay recurring expenses out of fund balance unless it is truly an emergency. And if anybody, wants to take a hard step, then I would suggest you propose the cuts, because we're going to end up there anyway, because the fund balance won't last forever. But it's a dangerous situation. I appreciate your idea about raising revenue, and anything that those programs can materialize would be great. But as we sit here tonight, they've got to pay bills next year. And if it's not money guaranteed, it may help the next year or the following year. But if we don't have money that's assured coming in, we're not going to be able to pay the expenses. So if people, and I guess, Steve, you haven't said it, but if people don't want to fund it, where are your cuts? Do you have recommended cuts? Because, and I want to say that because I think this conversation is going to come up every single year. But if we're going to say we're not going to fund the millage, then we need to talk about what we're willing to cut, because that's ultimately where it goes, and it's people.
I shared with you on June 8th what we've already cut to get us to this point, because we cut $1.4 million just to get to a point where we could fund our budget with the $15.7 million. And if we go further, I presented a list of things that, for your consideration, that would have to occur. And Mr. Bounds is calling that up if you would like for me to review that. If you would go to the slide that shows what we cut in order to get down to this particular level. I think that may be Mr. Richardson's PowerPoint. All right, and let's go back one slide, if you would, Mr. Bounds, to indicate. Just go back one slide, and then we'll come back to this one. As we said on June 8th, there were $1.4 million in mandatory cuts, and first of all, it reflected these major cost containment measures, which were redirections of school administrative and instructional staff across the district for consistency and efficiency, realignment of existing support staff, and freezing of supplements at the school at the level for 14-15. So those things were cost containment measures. And in addition to that, then these were cuts that we've made: reduced allocations for travel, for conferences, food, and memberships, eliminated all 10 permanent substitute positions, reduction of 2 media specialist positions, reduction of 1 media specialist assistant position, eliminated salary supplements for intramural sports, will not fill 1 vacant math interventionist position, redirection of 4 reading interventionist positions. Actually, I think there might be 5 of those. 10% reduction in all supply and material counts, all programs, all schools, all across the district. Reduce the temperature setting for heat by 1 degree. It'll be 1 degree cooler in the winter, and it'll be 1 degree warmer in the summer. And I know in Mr. Richardson's presentation, he can tell you how much money that saves across the district. And changed our lawn mowing cycle from every 7 days to every 10 days. And those are cuts that we've made to get us to the 1.4 million level. They're already gone. Then on top of that, decisions we've made which will not yield money right off, but it will down the road. Department heads to teach a full schedule. Currently, department heads get additional time for planning. That will go away. That could save us anywhere from probably 8 to 12 FTEs by doing that. And reduction in professional development supplies and materials, which we have previously been able to offer to our employees. All right, then going to, if the budget is not funded at the $166.4 million level, these are the things that we see that would have to be eliminated. Redirection of 2.5 additional math interventionists, reduction of RTI supplies, reduction of the number of teacher technology leaders that we have in the district, redirection of 2 Math Matters teachers, that's 2 full-time FTEs, initiate outsourcing of custodial services at both at elementary, middle, and high, reduction in number of SROs, probably beginning with elementary schools sharing, initiate reduction of non-required programs such as elementary world languages and 5th grade strings programs, and begin increasing our student-teacher ratio by not filling some of the vacancies that we have for teachers and driving up a class size. So I think those are the realities that we face.
Okay, thank you very much. Oh, Ms. Baumgartner.
Dr. Heffner, looking at this slide here and the possible cuts is, can be pretty daunting and grim, but one of the things on the redirection of Math Matters teachers, Math Matters teachers are teaching math anyway. It's just teaching it a different way, and there's a grant that funds a lot of it from the business community. I
will probably may yield to my instructional or HR person, but we have had Math Matters in all of our middle schools. 2 were full-time persons. The other sections were taught by existing math teachers. And as you say, that there is some monies provided for the people in Math Matters to teach, to do some special activities with math students. Dr. Milton, are you the one that can give the real specifics on that?
Well, Dr. Jakes and I both have different involvement with this, so let me take the instructional angle first to bring a little bit of clarity for that. Math Matters is something that has supported our mathematics program at the middle level. We know that there have been some positive results for that. However, it's not required by state nor federal expectations. It's been something that we've been able to offer supplementary. The teachers that we have had, the 2 that you're seeing here for redirection, currently these 2 people have been solely for the Math Matters support program. 2 of our middle schools have allowed people to teach Math Matters in a section or 2, depending upon their availability. Obviously, everyone is certified to teach math and is considered highly qualified. We just had the scheduling component for the 2 schools where you see the redirection there. So those 2 teachers will have been assigned to teach math, as you've asked, but they may not be able to pick up the number of students as they have in the past. We hope to continue next year, depending on the discussion, the results of tonight, and the budget direction you all give us to go towards, that we can make sure that at least a section or 2 of a teacher's assigned teaching load would still be able to support students through a Math Matters model. However, that's going to go back to the class enrollment. If the ratios were to increase, then Math Matters may be something that has to start to be less involved or less offered than what we've historically been able to do over the past 3 years.
How successful has Math Matters been?
That's a great question too, Ms. Baumgartner. Have we done a program evaluation? I can't offer you that data tonight. That's something that accountability under Mr. Bounds' department and instruction have monitored. Our principals, I give them total credit. They and their APIs and the Math Matters teachers have been heavily involved with choosing the right students to be in the program. So we can show that there's been evidence as far as growth with math. And attitudinal changes you can't really measure on an aptitude test. However, when you have students that are excited about mathematics and may pursue a STEM-related career, that would be hashtag priceless if you watched a commercial. So those kinds of things impact the attitude, not just the academic performance. Unfortunately, I can't say to you X number % of growth, but we could certainly gather that data between Mr. Bounds' department and mine if that would be your wishes.
Okay, yeah, I would love to see it.
Okay.
So we've had the discussions with the principals where we have the 2 Math Matters positions to look at the schedule and looking at having those teachers pick up the traditional math courses to ensure that they would still be employed and still have that position. So we have made that preliminary step, of course, pending the direction of the board.
Can I follow up on that? So are you saying that we'll just have Math Matters at 2 of the middle schools or at all 4? I mean, depending on what happens.
Yes, ma'am. We would like to say with all 4 be able to continue to offer it, but it's going to depend on the scheduling. So if a teacher already has a full load assigned for teaching the regular core content of mathematics, they may not be able to pick up an additional section or 2. And obviously you want to separate 7th grade from 8th grade. And now that we have 6th grade, Crossroads Intermediate has had this program, and Chapin Intermediate coming online, how would we staff that? That would be some direction we would need from you all tonight. Dr. Jakes and I have talked about it with Mr. Holden and also with Mr. Hutchinson at Crossroads Middle. Dr. Hefner's been involved with as well, so we've got some ideas. We just need to know FTE-wise where to direct the people towards scheduling. Our schedules for 15-16 are not completed. However, we're very far into the process based on the current FTEs that we expect. Mr. Dean and I meet with our high school and middle school administrators and assistant principals for instruction. We are right on time with what we need to do, but we are waiting on some information so that we can give them final word staffing-wise, so scheduling-wise we can be properly prepared for the 15-16 school year. So tonight is really critical for us instructionally to make sure that we can proceed with finalizing our scheduling so that if we are not able to offer Math Matters at our schools, that we can make sure those students are redirected towards other selections. But if we are offering it, we need to make sure the structure and availability is there as well.
Thank you. And this is a great illustration of what the conversations will be around this table over the next several years if we don't do what we need to do as far as funding the budget as we need. So, I mean, this is tough. You see that several of us are in angst just because of this. There's a whole lot of other things down the line. I'll say that the first time I heard that the possible millage just to cover our needs, there was a little bit of a sticker shock. But then when I looked at, well, what is the actual dollar amount, and I think you provided that dollar amount to us, that helped explain it a little bit better to me. And then I have to give Mr. White a lot of credit for being able to very clearly explain the compounding impact of these mandated, and we like doing it, but the mandated step increases. I think that just tells the story that we're out there in a lake with no life jacket, and so we're going to have to make our own way. And I like Ms. Lovelace's idea of looking at the possibility of bringing more business and industry to our area. I think that is looking outside the box. But all of that's going to take time. And I know, Ms. Hammond, you talked about the General Assembly, and so did you, Mr. White. One thing that I learned in public policy is you can't ever take away something that you've given people. So the fact that Act 388 is out there, and homeowners are exempt from property taxes on their on their homes, then there's just not enough political will to ever change that. That's just the fact. So I'm not quite sure. There's nothing in the immediate future that tells us what the revenue is. And this school district has been a beacon, and it has attracted families and young families, young couples to this district because of the school district. And I have to agree with what Mr. White said, that if we no longer can provide an extraordinary school district, there's some good school districts around us. I think they've been taking some plays out of our playbook, and so if they want to move across town, go across the river, then they might have to do that. But so we're not necessarily the only game in town. I think that we have to stay on top, and it's really sad that we're put in this situation. I believe it's been a real trickle down with the General Assembly making some laws. We have mandates. We have unfunded mandates. We have this Act 388 that has tied our hands, and then they're taking away money from us, from our school district, you know, and so no one is necessarily, taxpayers aren't really going to the General Assembly and standing up in the gallery, because you can't even do that, to say you need to do something different. But no, they pass down these mandates and these problems to the local governments. County governments, city governments, and school boards are all facing problems thanks to the trickle-down decisions that are made at the State House. So our hands are tied, and I have to agree with what Mr. Haltwanger said. We were elected to the school board. I think each one of us has a strong commitment to doing what is right. We might have our own way about doing that, but bottom line is we have to do what is right for our schools, our students. No one else is looking out for this. City council is not, our town councils, our county. We're the ones that are in charge. We can't depend on anyone else, and so we're the ones who have to make the hard decisions. I think it is our responsibility to be the ones who protect this school district. And I am encouraged by the fact that we sent out, I don't know, countless emails before the last public hearing to business owners, to all sorts of people involved, our business partners. Dr. Hefner has met with business partners. We don't have an auditorium filled with people, businesses clamoring, saying don't raise our taxes. We don't have that. I think they realize that the value of the schools is helping their business. And to use Mr. Haltwanger's language, some small sacrifices. So I think it is our responsibility. It's certainly what I support. And I would encourage each of the school board members to rethink or think about this and think about what our responsibility and who the school district depends on to make these hard decisions. Ms. Hammond.
I know I don't speak as eloquently as Mr. Haltwanger said it, but I too agree about doing what's right, and I can assure you that in no means did I come prepared to do any of these cuts that are the additional cuts. I still stand by the fact that I know Lexington County is reassessing this year, and so is Richland, and I think that's one of the reasons one of the districts in Richland counties decided not to go for this going back and recouping these lost mills. So at this time, though, I think everybody probably has their minds made up, and I would like to make an amendment to the motion.
All right.
I move that we fully fund the proposed budget at $166,451,900 021, but with a 6.4 mil increase instead of a 17.5 mil increase, and to fund the remaining amount needed with a portion of the 32 million in fund balance, with the understanding that no more cuts be made that directly impact the classroom. And the one that did...
Ms. Hammond, is that the end?
I wrote it.
Well,
No,
I mean, I want you to talk about that, but we need to probably have it concise. Are you getting almost to the end of that motion?
Yeah, I am.
Okay,
I
go
am.
ahead. Go
It's
ahead.
just, I'm just adding this to it. To include a method to generate revenue to offset the 10% supply cut as proposed by the original budget, that board members agreed to donate a portion of their 2013 salary increase back to a teacher supply fund that's available through the District 5 Education Foundation, and that amount donated can be chosen and decided by each individual board member. That's it.
Okay, thank you. And just to correct you, it's 15.7.
What did I say? Oh, I said 17. I'm sorry. I
That's
took
all
the
right,
numbers
just,
back.
just to make sure that
And I
that's...
wrote 17 point. I'm sorry.
That's fine.
I think I'm dyslexic with numbers. I'm sorry. Thank you, Miss, because that
Certainly.
sure makes a difference.
So next, is there a
I-
second for that? Okay, Ms. Lovelace seconds that. Now, Ms. Hammond, would you like to start the discussion on that?
Yes, I think I mainly said my point. I want the teachers, the administration, and my fellow board members know that in no way in one night would I come up and want to think that I, as a board member, should decide what to cut. I think that that's something we need to have committees like Ms. Susan Baker brought to the last meeting, where we used to have a lot of committees that prioritized our needs. Again, my thing is to buy time. I realize the need to do, we need the money. I'm not arguing that with any board member. I just think that the right thing to do is to fund it with I am proposing a mills increase, but and I wrote it down. I had my numbers from you, but I didn't put the amount on it, that we fund it with 6.4 mills. We raised it to that. And then it would only be, and Mr. Richardson, I didn't get the exact figure with the amount we'd use from the fund balance. I didn't write it in the amendment. Would it be about 1.8 million that we'd have to, what did the 6.4 generate? Because I didn't write that down.
It would leave us about $2.2 million short.
So we would have to, oh, I'm sorry, I thought it was 1.2. 2.2 million, so that you as board members know that we'd be using that out of fund balance. But again, Ms. Hutchinson, I just feel compelled that that's the right thing to do, to give us the opportunity to look at the budget and have our experts if we ever have to cut. Because here's the thing that I made a note of this. I don't think we can sustain raising the taxes every single year without looking back at some of these cuts. I don't want to do that, and I hope I'm wrong. And I think if we get funding better, or we don't have the money that's getting taken from us to these districts that don't have the money we have, I just think there's a lot of question marks. And so to me, this would be something that is feasible, doable, without cutting anything, and totally funding the budget that the administration brought to me tonight. So that was my reasoning.
All right.
And then I think it would be great to add to the teacher fund, because we did cut supplies, I saw, by 10%.
Okay. Any comments? Mr. White?
Couple of things. And, you know, I go back to what we said. The 2.2 million will come out of fund balance each and every year unless we make cuts. This wasn't part of our discussion tonight, but I have been thinking a lot about this, because I did hear the recommendation that we seat a committee with members of the community, and I can tell you, Steve, you have a business advisory committee, whatever committees you want to seat, whoever you want to accept, but I can tell you it was insane when we had committees of this board, and the school district finally came in and said, you don't have anybody but board members on board committees. We're not in the operations, and I'm telling you, in my business, I'm a business owner, I'm part of our law firm. When we have to cost cut, we have price increases, we have to raise our prices. When we go into cost cutting, we don't invite people just to come from the community and tell us how to run our business. We would never do that. And I would never suggest that you do that. If somebody believes that we can cut $2.2 million this year and make these other cuts, then if they believe seriously, then I would say we ought to hire, I mean, you're the guy that is the CEO that has to operate this company. Nobody on this board knows anything about the operations, and we shouldn't invite strangers from the community to do it. And if you want to hire an expert that reports to you, that is in the business of doing this for a living as a professional and has, standards and a record that can be measured before you engage them, that would be a meaningful thing to do. You can still have your business advisory, but I think it's nothing but political, and it was the most outrageous thing I ever saw 8 or 9 years ago when it actually happened on this board, when we had unelected people sitting on committees telling the superintendent what to do. The other thing I would say, what people want to do with their board stipend, the board stipend was there for the future to pay people what was commensurate. You can't pay people for the time they give, but Ms. Hammond, that was your campaign promise to fund the Educational Foundation, and it's like, I think Larry and I had this conversation, you give from your heart. We give our time here, but it's not our job to fund the district. It wouldn't make a dent in the thing. Our problem is so much bigger that I'm not even going to entertain that. We want good people to come serve in the future. We want people who, from all backgrounds, they'll take the time to serve. I have no plans to touch my stipend. If somebody wants to give to the foundation, they ought to give out of their heart and not in a political statement or campaign statement. And again, $2.2 million, we're going to be cutting that somewhere if we pass on millage. And I just, if we change, if we get the legislature to change, then we can start looking at things differently. But where we are today, we can't assume it's going to be any different than it is next year, because that's all we're hearing. It's going to be the same.
Okay. Did you have? All right. No other discussion on that. Then we will vote on Ms. Hammond's motion. It was a long motion. Does anyone need to have Ms.
I think they made their minds up.
Does anyone need to hear it stated again? Okay. So all in favor of Ms. Hammond's amendment to the motion, please raise your hand. All opposed, please raise your hand. And that passes 6-1 with...
It fails.
Fails. Thank you. Fails 6-1. I'm so used to saying it the other way. Ms. Lovelace.
I also have an amendment. I propose the following amendment to to add to the existing millage 9.3 mills, which will result in a proposed budget increase of $2,203,412. Any shortfall from the second reading proposed budget dated June 8, 2015 projected revenue year 15-16 can be reconciled by fund balance or through efficiencies of operation not to affect teachers or classrooms.
All right. Is there a second?
A second.
Okay. Very good. Ms. Lovelace.
I do think that we need to go with the General Assembly and try to get them and, to work with us. I also know that Lexington County is in the process of reassessing our properties. So something good should happen in there. I think too, I'm still stuck on thinking outside the box, because I know how great we are about being able to do that and bring things in here. And so that we can continue to do this. But and again, in my heart, I just feel like that this is what I think is the most millage that we should actually put on the taxpayers at this point in time.
Okay, any other discussion or comments about Ms. Lovelace's amendment to the motion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor of approving Ms. Lovelace's motion, please raise your hands. And all opposed, please raise your hands. And that fails 5-2, with Ms. Lovelace and Ms. Hammond voting for it. I think, unless I hear otherwise, that it's time for us to vote on the original motion that Mr. Gant made and Mr. White seconded. Does anyone need to hear that restated? Okay. All in favor of approving the general fund budget and the motion based on the details of the motion that Mr. Gant made, please raise your hands. All opposed? And that passes 5-2 with Ms. Hammond and Ms. Lovelace opposing. Okay, thank you very much. And I will say that I believe that we have given this community, and we've so many opportunities, which I feel very good about. And we have been totally transparent, and I do appreciate all the work, the cuts that you and your administration worked on. I know cuts are never easy, and this decision is not easy, but Mr. Richardson, I want to applaud you and your staff. I know you have spent many a sleepless night and nightmares worrying about this, and I hope you are able to get a good night's sleep tonight. Our next action agenda is the continuing resolution for the operating budget.
Mr. Richardson, would you present this, please?
Thank you, Dr. Hefner. In the event that after what we just went through and the state budget does not pass by July 1st, we have a continuing resolution here. And what this does is allow us to operate using our current fiscal year budget, continuing on through July, and hopefully that the General Assembly will get something passed in the very near future so it does not affect anybody's pay or anything going forward. But that state has passed a continuing resolution will allow them to fund us going into the next fiscal year at the current levels. And and it's possible, although it'll be by the skin of their teeth, that they can get this budget passed prior to July 1st. If that does happen, then this resolution will be moved.
Okay. Do I have a motion for this? Mr. Gant.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move that we approve the continuing resolution for the operating budget shown in Exhibit E.
Is there a second? Ms. Bumgarner seconds. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed, and that passes 7-0. That concludes our action agenda. We'll move on to our discussion agenda.